Yeah, guys, I'm going to do my Witsit interview. I'm going to do it now. Austin, I don't know. Are you familiar with me? I'm kind of like, I'm kind of like the bad boy of the flat Earth community. Apparently, I didn't plan on this, Austin. I'm just kind of doing my Z thing, but kind of is what it is. Are you familiar with my work, or are you new to me?
I'm roughly familiar, so I wouldn't know a ton. I've been sent a couple of your videos, and I was impressed that you're pretty articulate and well spoken. So I have nothing but good words to say about you at the moment. I'm not
Appreciate it.
particularly familiar in depth or anything, though. I'm pretty busy nowadays, brother.
I imagine it. Salutes, man. We've all seen your journey. Who've watched, and we've seen your family grow. So many blessings to you. Well, I'll just kind of give you my perspective. So I've seen you, Austin. I've seen your journey from early on, like many of us. I watched you and as you embarked on your tour across the U.S. I've seen your challenges, and I've heard what you had to say, man. And what a fucking ride we've seen. I watched your legal issues with the federal government due to roughly free speech. I know it wasn't all about free speech, but in the end, you and I know it was about free speech. I do believe, as you've stated, that you were targeted based on the nature of your speech, particularly the flat Earth topic. Um, I don't recall what the resolution was, if there was any, with your federal case. I know you were fighting it. Do you care to update us and bring us in on that?
Yeah, sure, yeah. So it definitely was because what I was saying, because the cop, and no one's seen this. But the cop on his body cam specifically states, well, we have a guy saying the earth is flat outside. So he actually says the content of my speech in his body cam call to his supervisor, which is specifically illegal. But um, so basically, they called me and they offered me $200 to just settle out, like pay for a ticket. I'm like, no, I don't pay fines for free speech. And so then it ended up costing me many, many thousands of dollars. I had to fly out to the court in South Dakota on my birthday, ironically, and fight it myself. But she just denied my motion. I don't know. Have you read my motion that I filed?
I did not read your motion. I recall you discussing the motion at the time. I knew you purposely embedded certain language for the record. Am I correct in terms of flat Earth?
No, yeah, that was my Wyoming case. So if you're not, I got caught. I got in trouble two times within like 2 days for the same thing. Once at Mount Rushmore, and then following that at Yellowstone. In the Yellowstone case, I filed my motion to dismiss due to facial invalidity, meaning that the actual statute I was charged under, which technically it's a federal regulation, was unconstitutional on its face. And then in that Wyoming case, I also filed an as applied challenge where I throw tons of flat Earth arguments in there, right? Because yeah, I was just doing it obviously for it to be on the record. But none of that got responded to specifically, and it was all ignored. But with the Wyoming thing, I was just fighting the free speech. Now I should have appealed it. I filed a notice of appeal, and then I kind of got talked out of it by someone, a civil attorney, and I shouldn't have listened, but you know what can you do? So it got denied. The Wyoming had the flat Earth stuff, but I do encourage anyone to read the motion if they ever get a chance because um it's a as humbly as I can say, it's a very very good motion that cannot be rebutted. And I got the federal judge from Wyoming to actually retire early, step down, and switch the case because I filed a judicial complaint because they forced me to wear a mask. I got a U.S. attorney to switch the case in Wyoming. Then in South Dakota, I got two U.S. attorneys to drop the case and hand it off. And then when the U.S. attorneys tried to respond to my motion, they didn't even try to rebut the arguments. They just said he doesn't have the right to make these arguments. And in the very beginning of my motion, I used the Supreme Court to show that I clearly do. In fact, anyone in this call listening can challenge a free speech law, by the way. You don't even have to be charged underneath it. So, long story short, they didn't argue against it. The judge is like, well, you're wrong. He showed that you're wrong in his opening paragraph and denied their request to dismiss. But then she just dismissed it by strawmanning one small portion of the of the paper. So that's kind of how that went. So what happened was when I went there and I had to defend myself in the trial, um, I'm not disputing that I spoke outside of an approved area, right? So if the law is held up, then I was guilty, because I did speak outside of the area without a permit. So I was found guilty. It was like open and close. Like I clearly did it. I'm sitting there on camera doing it. So I was found guilty because of that. She just denied the motion, and then she wouldn't let me argue. Prosecutor goes first, defense goes second. She wouldn't let me present my case. She didn't even let me present my case because I had further arguments. So that's kind of how that went down. I do plan on long story short, I was found guilty in both cases, and then I was banned from Yellowstone for a year, and I was given what ended up being like $1,400 in fines. So it was probably like just under 7 or 8 thousand total. I spent to fight that, but yeah, that's kind of how that went down. I do plan on refiling the challenge to the law once I get moved. But yeah, that's how that all went down. I do encourage people to read the motion though, because it took me a lot of time to write that thing. But
Let's back up to the flat Earth topic in general, if you'll allow me. Are you carrying the flat Earth on your back, Austin?
I wouldn't say that. I think we all have our own approaches in our own lanes. I'm not big on
Right.
group think or yeah,
Right.
culty type vibes.
Me neither. But I mean, from my perspective, there are certain individuals that have now taken the mantle, and you find yourself in a position. You are leader of a community. It is a community. It's obvious. It appears to be a growing community to me, Witsit. I mean, popular to mainstream narrative. I mean, let's look at David Weiss's app. If we're to look at that as any type of microcosmic example, his app seems to be growing. I mean, let's look at the role of numbers. I'd imagine only a very small portion of hashtag or so-called flat earthers are members of his app. It appears to be growing in some ways. I think it's growing. The awareness of the level horizontal realm, which is demonstrable. Austin, I put it like this with the topic. It's not a topic about belief. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate is because we're talking about applied physical science, really, which if we're to approach any degree of objectivity in this realm, what other tools do we have besides logic, the scientific method, reasoning? These are the things that we can look to try to approach objectivity, and high amongst those is applied physical science. Now, people want to make this a debate about beliefs. They want to make it a debate about observations and understandings, but doesn't it really just come down to objective reality and the ability to discern that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty much, man. Yeah, I'm like a broken record with this, but it's very simple. If you were a caveman and you came out from a cave for the first time and you looked at the Earth, you would think the Earth was like a stationary topographical plane. You would think that the water's flat. You would think the sun moves in the sky, blah, blah, blah. So that's like the default position based on all evidence. And any applied science requires that acknowledgement, actually, right? Like anything we do in science, it just starts with the understanding that we're not moving and blah, blah, blah. So the claim that everything is the opposite of that is a wild claim. I mean, they have the burden of proof to substantiate that, and we tested it, and it's not true. It's really kind of that simple. The conversation isn't complicated. To say that the Earth is actually not flat, rather it's a tilted, wobbling, spinning ball, is just a positive claim antithetical to the evidence. I think that the danger of this, and the reason I'm so passionate about it, and I prioritize flat Earth, is what it does is it makes everyone think they can't trust their senses or experience or what observations that they experience every day, and that they actually have to go to an authority figure to explain to them why everything is the opposite of what they see. And that's a very old practice of how to cast spells on people. So yeah, I mean, to me it's wild that it's even like this difficult to get people to see it. But yeah, what can you do, man? I mean, hopefully that kind of answered your question. I think it's all around pretty simple, and we get dragged through the weeds with this conversation way too much.
Well, I agree, and I agree that it is very simple. And then when discoursing with with others, I like to focus on what you said: is that the globe is the claim, the heliocentric model is the claim. Flat Earth is not a claim, so the burden is on the those levying the claim to prove it. We're under no obligation to disprove the globe, disprove the solar system, the heliocentric model. Their burden is to prove it. Now, if we falsify their supposed proofs, where does that leave us? So I kind of keep it there too, Austin. What are your feelings about the quote unquote idea of a flat earth model? We'll be presented with this. Okay, where's the working model? Show me the model. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so actually, a lot of people disagree with me on this. So my take is obviously we don't need a model. Models aren't reality. There is no such thing as an Earth model. There's no such thing as a globe Earth model, because what we do is we try to model out different phenomena. So with the globe, for example, they try to model the core. It's called the geodynamo model. They try to model out the magnetic field. It's called the geomagnetic model, right? We model individual phenomena. We don't model the entire Earth as a whole. That's ridiculous. But I don't think that it's useless to try to figure out what's going on. But when people say, "Where's your working flat Earth model?" what they're actually saying is, "Where's your map?" That's all they're saying. They're just talking about the map. If you talk about the magnetic field, it works way better on a plane Earth. If you talk about everything else, works better on a flat Earth. So they're just talking about the map and then how things in the sky appear relative to this map. But obviously, we were lied to about the Earth. We can't privately explore the Earth. So to think that we would have a map that's entirely accurate is just ridiculous. And it's just a tactic. But the part that people disagree with me on, because all that's true, we don't have the burden to provide a model. We don't need one. It's falsifications independent of replacement. I coined that phrase a few years ago. But I will say I am interested in kind of like a macro model for purposes of just discovery, right? So I am working on a bit of a model when it comes to the sky and astronomical observations. And I feel that I can explain all the paths of the stuff in the sky. I can explain the red shift. I can explain the occasional blue shift and all this stuff. And I think that I've discovered, although not actually required logically, we are dealing with people that are just under a spell, and if you can start to give them answers to things, it may help break some of their cognition. So my answer in short is it isn't required, and if someone is logically efficient, they're going to know that. But it seems that's not the case, and I am kind of pursuing a model in a way just so we can kind of start to piece everything together, right? Because I think that we shouldn't just play these games with these people that are like typically atheist degenerates, not always, but like just play these games where it's like we're caught up in the weeds so long, where really we're all here because we're true earthers and we just want to figure out what's really going on and we want to learn. And I think we're being tricked into not figuring out more by like being really rigid and dogmatic about how we approach the conversation. I think we should be much more open to establishing what we can with science and then speculating other things to try to figure out where we truly do live and piece it together. So like I have a bit of a nuanced take on that. People are triggered that I answer a bunch of speculative questions or that I don't shy away from speculation or that I talk about potential models of different parts of the earth, but teach their own, I guess.
Fair point, Austin. Is in your opinion, is the Gleason's map the most accurate?
Um, No, no. I think that some of the older maps are more accurate. Like I forgot the Monty map from the 1500s. I think would be more accurate.
You're referencing the 1586 Urbano Monte map, which shows land at the North Pole and also shows habitable land around the circumference, which we call Antarctica.
Yep.
What do you think about the land at the North Pole?
I think there's definitely something at the North Pole. What it is, I don't know. There may be land, there may be a mountain. I don't really know. From my understanding of magnetism, there is a vortex on the Earth, and all evidence shows this with the measurable ether drift, which has been effectively proven. Right? Whether you call it the ether drift or whatever, the motion of the sky translates down to the Earth, and it changes with altitude. And we've proven that with millimeter precision with radio wave 2004 and all kinds of things that people don't really know about. But with that
So
being said, that
what you're referencing is if you use a laser gyro at altitude, it changes, and it should not if it was globe spin. Am I correct on that?
that's correct. That's one of them. And they'll say, well, that's because of the pressure and blah, blah, blah. But it's actually Michelson-Morley test has been replicated outside of a gyro, and it's been done with radio waves, and Dayton Miller replicated Michelson Morley like over a quarter million times. And what he showed was that the fringe shift from the sky changes with altitude. He said if you want to do Michelson Morley, you need to go to a mountain, you need to get higher up, and you're going to see the effect is stronger. There should be no fringe shift on a spinning, tilted, wobbling, revolving ball, right? But there is, and this has been done with radio waves to millimeter precision in the 21st century. And obviously, no one's going to tell you that unless you hear it from one of us. But so, with all that being said, there's a huge amount of evidence that Dayton Miller's findings have been verified. Einstein himself said if Dayton Miller's positive results are accurate, relativity falls like a house of cards. More specifically, the entire heliocentric model does. And with that being said, that means that there's a drift over top of the Earth, and it's connected to the movement we see in the sky. And and from my understanding of magnetism, that means that there's a vortex in the center, like all magnetic fields. And if there's a vortex in the center, in theory, there could be an exit out of this place. I know that sounds crazy, but that's how magnetic fields work. The torus field has a vortex, and it basically opens up in the middle, above and below.
Austin, do you think the aurora borealis evidences your thoughts here?
I think it is related to being closer to the vortex. I think that all evidence at the north is super shoddy, bro, because they did this. Most people don't know that they have a northern warning system set up around the 60th north latitude, the 55th north latitude. And there's like trip lines where they monitor all activity past that. So they've been keeping people out of the very center of the North Pole for many, many decades. So we don't know, man. We don't actually have the information to figure it out. And everyone wants to talk about Antarctica a lot, but they don't let you go to the north. It's called the Northern Warning System. And coincidentally, it was established right around the same time they did everything else, the Antarctic Treaty, all that. So I think the Northern Lights would have something to do with it. I don't even think that the globe model's explanation of Northern Lights are entirely inaccurate. It may be a bit more nuanced based on like the magnetic field and excitation of certain gases and the ionization of potentially plasma and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I don't even know exactly where the North Pole is, to be honest, and I don't know what's there. I just know no one knows what's there. 99.9% of the world doesn't know what's there. But I think it's a vortex. It has to be a vortex, physically speaking. So.
Let's talk gravity. All right. Now, I've said numerous times, multiple different arenas, that they give us four forces of nature. They give us gravity, strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, and electromagnetism. To my knowledge, there's only one that's demonstrable, and that's electromagnetism. So what's that mean? It means gravity and the two nuclear forces just kind of seem to be theories at best and deceptions probably. Now, you've said that you posit that what we call gravity may indeed simply be electromagnetism. magnetics. Do you care to speak on that?
Yeah, sure. I tactically only say certain things in debate because some of this requires speculation, but I would say what is called gravitation is actually it's an emergent property due to the oscillation of the background field, which would be the ether.
The
It's just an
ether.
emergent property. Yeah, it's an effect. It's like the ripples and vibration in this field causes an effect because there is something causing everything to move around the sky, whether the earth is flat or not. But there is a difference in gravity and gravitation, right? Like gravity comes from gravitas, which means heavy, how heavy objects are. And objects obviously are heavy and they have weight. And that's a real thing. Flat earthers don't and shouldn't deny gravity. It's actually gravitation. It's their theory of gravitation that isn't true. But yeah, I say everything's intrinsically electrostatic. And this is 10 to 36 power stronger than they claim gravity is. And it's impossible to get rid of that variable. So, simply put, everything that has charge tries to find equilibrium at the ground, which is why we ground things. And so there's a slight bias coming from the sky, pressing down onto the earth. And just like Tesla said, that pressure coming down on the earth is what gives us static electricity, and static electricity is what holds everything together. It gets really it's a huge subject because then you said electromagnetic, I said electrostatic. Well, what's the difference? Let's see if we can define these terms. And when you get into defining the terms, that's a 4 hour conversation. But yeah, basically everything's intrinsically electromagnetic and or electrostatic, and everything just seeks equilibrium via pressure mediation, and everything being electric tries to go to the ground and find equilibrium, and that just sets our up and down. There's an objective up and down relative to the Earth. So I mean, you could say it's not objective because it's relative, but anyway, yeah, everything is electric, and the evidence shows us that what's so funny is top levels of academia are inching towards this, saying, oh well, maybe there's a push electromagnetic version of gravity, and maybe gravity's electromagnetic after all, and maybe it's an emergent property from the background. So that seems to be what it is. It seems to be what it is. If there is an ether, though, there can't be their model, and so they just ignore that. But yeah, long story short, everything's electric. Density, weight, what people call mass. You can't have any of those things without electrostatics, which is what holds all the matter together. It's the medium, the air or water or anything is electrostatic. The ground's electrostatic. Everything's electric, or you could say electromagnetic, and everything seeks equilibrium via pressure mediation, and that's why we have an up and down set on the Earth. And then what people call gravity is just the agreed upon average of how fast things fall when they do fall down. So it's actually all pretty simple. It's their side of the aisle that has to make it really complicated.
I would agree with that. But we talk about electrostatics as this force. There's not. This isn't a universally agreed upon throughout the quote unquote community. I have a lot of proponents here of, which is back into the conversation, rising Earth. They say to me, stationary Earth's a claim, and they say that relative density disequilibrium ceases in what we call a free fall, but which to them would just be stasis. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've heard about the whole the Earth is rising thing. Actually, that would be the claim. Is just like the globe. Like the default position based on the evidence is that the Earth is not moving, and in fact, we actually can tell when there is movement. It's called an earthquake or something because it's changing from its previously stationary state, and all attempts to measure any motion has always been null. So the default position is that the Earth's not moving, and any claim opposite of that requires the substantiate their burden. But it's very easy to debunk the whole Earth is moving up thing. Very easy. Objects fall at different rates at different locations on the Earth, and secondly, the same object will fall at different rates at the same location on the Earth. So we use what's called gravimeters, and they're vacuum sealed chambers that use interferometry. So it's like lasers that have crossing patterns. And so when something falls through it, it cuts through that light and it gets you very precise measurements of how fast it falls. And these objects fall at different rates at the same location. So you have the same density of the medium, the same density of the object, the same location, and it falls at different rates, which would require the Earth to speed up and slow down as it moves up and down, or as it moves up, which wouldn't be a constant velocity, which is what people are claiming. But further than that, The fact that it does it at different places on the Earth would mean that different parts of the Earth would have to be moving at different rates up, constantly fluctuating. So that's pretty easily debunked, honestly. I mean, there's really no rebuttal to that. I know people got really caught up into the whole the Earth is moving up, and they're correct. It's not just density, but they're completely wrong about the Earth moving up. I mean, I just pretty thoroughly debunked that, frankly.
Austin, in your view, every flat earther gets asked the same question over and over again. Why the lie? I could say why the lie. To me, it's about the creation and the creator, plain and fucking simple. Maybe more land. What do you say?
Yeah, but my answer's pretty much the same. I think it's kind of what I said earlier, which is that you have to think that you can't trust your senses, so you need some like authority to tell you what's really going on because you're so incompetent and you're such a slave that you can't even understand what's really going on. You need someone else to tell you, and that's how you cast spells. And this has been known for thousands of years. If you can make someone deny what they see with their own eyes and what they experience, and make them believe the opposite just because you tell them, then you've effectively created a slave. Obviously, there could be more land, and it doesn't even require it being outside of what people call Antarctica. It could just be in the Southern Ocean and the North. Just hiding what's at the North would be sufficient reason to lie about the Earth. And of course, the biggest one is that if the Earth is in the center, then someone had to put it there. And yeah, people just don't like that idea for whatever reason. And that's not religious, whether you want to think that the creator's benevolent or malevolent, whether it's personal, whether it's not, whether it's however you define it, they define it, is all subsequent conversation. Obviously, intelligent design is required if the Earth is in the center of everything. And if people know that there is intelligent design, then they know that they're very powerful. They know that they don't answer to man made systems like the government. You answer to whatever that creator is, right? And so it makes you much more powerful and less obedient. And obviously, nihilism and atheism is like the controller's best friend. So yeah, I think those are the three primary ones. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, but I would say potentially hiding land, um, getting you to ignore your senses and believe the opposite, and then to hide the antecedent of creation would be the three primary reasons.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's before I let you go, Austin, because I know you're a busy guy and I don't want to keep you here all morning, but let's bring it here, man. I jokingly said that Austin Witsit's carrying the flat Earth community on his back. That's not a super stretch, by the way. Anybody who knows, your life, dude. I mean, you're a man, dude. You're a man like all of us, with frailties, limitations, and also possibilities. You have a new family. We got to watch your journey. You shared that with us. Why don't you kind of bring us into your world as much as you're comfortable, man? What's it like being Austin Witsit, dude? People are looking towards you. People listen to you. You have a lot of sway, and I know you know that by now. It's I'm sure it's obvious. Maybe bring us into what it's like to be Austin Witsit, man. Some of the challenges, some of the wonderful things about it, dude. Help bring us in, man.
Um, okay. Yeah. So I don't know. Anyone that knows me in real life has no like. I don't really like necessarily everyone looking at me or something like that. So it and I don't want to sound like ungrateful or anything, but it's not really my cup of tea. But I feel like I'm supposed to do it. So it's like it's pros and cons. I don't really like everyone like keeping up with me and staring at me or saying like depending on what I say or whatever. But I do consider it a blessing. I don't want to sound grateful. So overall, it's all good. Bob got me to do it. And here I am, and I'm obviously not going to leave now. So it is what it is, and I do think that I've been kind of putting off really blowing up because I don't like it, but I think it's about the time that I have to just kind of take that and roll with it. So we're going to be on some really big shows in the coming months. Yeah. So overall, like from my perspective, I'm super blessed. I get to talk about stuff that I find intellectually invigorating, and I get to, in my opinion, like help change people's lives. And I get some of like the most incredible emails and telegrams and phone calls about how their whole life changed. for the better once they found out this truth by watching one of my shows or whatever. And so that's like a blessing I'm super grateful for, is making like a positive impact on the world, as corny as that may sound. And when it comes to more personal, like I'm just super blessed. I have a beautiful, about to be 8-month-old baby. She's like incredibly smart and beautiful, and we plan on making lots of babies. I'm married to like my best friend, and I said a prayer asking for it, and I was given it. So no complaints on mine. We're moving to Florida next month, so we're kind of starting that next chapter where we'll be moving to Florida. I'll be doing the audit and asset thing a lot. And I'm also helping with a bunch of like legal things in the background, kind of for free. So it seems like right now I'm just trying to like be able to get everything done without being overwhelmed. But yeah, man, I love life, man. I can't complain. I'm about to move to paradise with a beautiful family and make more children. And I think that what we're doing is having a positive impact on the world. And I think that it's really about to blow up. So from my perspective, it's just kind of trying to remain like humble and grateful, and find a way to get everything done, you know.
Austin, man, you spending some time here this morning. We appreciate it, dude. Much love. You gonna come back and see me, Austin? Please don't say it's gonna be our last conversation, dude. We got a lot of
No,
stuff to do.
yeah,
Austin Witsit and Zetetic Warrior. We may be the ones to lead this fucking charge. I don't know.
that's kind of my take on that whole thing. And I am definitely down to have a conversation with you in the future. Maybe you can come on my show or vice versa. We can plan something. Um, and yeah, I enjoyed the conversation, brother.
Right back at you. And for anybody who wants to get in contact with you, what's your public contact info?
Probably the best way is to message me on Telegram, which is it's just at Witsit on Telegram. Or you can email me witsitgetsit@gmail.com, or witsit@protonmail.com. And then my YouTube is witsitgetsit.
Awesome. Yeah, and I've dropped a link to your channel numerous times in the chat. Guys, some of you know, some of you know, some of you don't know who we're talking to right here. All right. But if you don't know, you better know. All right, Austin, much love, dude. It was great talking this morning, man. And let me say something. Skylar is lucky to have friends like you, dude. Much love. You're doing good stuff. Don't burn yourself out, Austin. We need you, dude. Because if you drop, it's going to be Zetetic Warrior, and I don't want to be debating these globetards. I don't think I have the same kind of patience you do, brother. All right, much love, dude. Much
All right,
love,
much
dude. You
love.
take care
Much
of
love. Have a
yourself.
good one.
Austin Witsit, everybody.